Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and today I wanted to do another Did You Know style of video for Rainbow Six Siege. A lot of you have been requesting one of these videos for quite some time, and so to start us off, did you know that you can kill an enemy player who was camping the ladder on the second floor of Chalet? I'm sure many of you are already aware of the trick where if you want to ensure that the offensive team isn't going to have access to the balcony outside of the library room, all you need to do is camp the ladder. You break open the barricade, you kind of figure out where the ladder is situated, and because the offensive team has to go through an animation when they're climbing on up, they can't shoot at you. And so if they are unlucky enough to climb up the death ladder, you get an easy kill. On the offensive side though, if you are on the receiving end of this tactic, it can be incredibly frustrating. You want to get on that ledge. It gives you 3 different windows that you can peer on into the objective, and if the enemy is able to deny you that access route, it's going to put your team at a pretty big disadvantage. And so instead of just using a smoke grenade, or if you don't have access to a smoke grenade to try to mask while you're climbing up the ladder, you can actually mosey on over to the left-hand side of the map and shoot someone who is camping the ladder. Now, you are going to want to be a little sneaky about it because if the enemy is watching out for movement, they might see you out in the distance, and you also probably might want to use a ACOG scope for this tactic, but as long as you're a little stealthy about it and you know what you're doing, the enemy's not going to expect it. They're going to be trained on the ladder itself, and so as soon as you shoot a bullet right through their skull, they're not going to know what hit them. And while it's not 100% guaranteed that you will be able to get an angle off on the enemy, more often than not, if you do see that the barricade has been broken down, you're pretty sure that they are using this tactic, head on over to the left-hand side, and more often than not, you are going to be able to get that headshot on the enemy and secure the ledge for your team. The next thing is that did you know that you can place a Valkyrie camera on the tail wing of the presidential plane? All you got to do is make your way up to the 3rd floor, find the opening, and pretty much just kind of throw it through the middle of it. Now, of course, this isn't going to be all that useful if the enemy gets inside of the plane itself, and because you're limited to only 3 cameras now, you got to be careful about it. But if the enemy does have a glass, this can be a lifesaver and also can just be really good for the start of the match. It gives you a great field of view of pretty much the entire map and all the activity of the offensive team. If they do have a glass, all the better. If you're trying to figure out where the glass is positioned, usually going up to a window to take a peek isn't a very good idea because it's going to result in your death. Now though, all you gotta do is peer through the camera really quickly, figure out where the glass is located, and then take advantage of that knowledge. And while it's not gonna be useful on every single round, especially if the objective is down in the basements, if it's on the 1st floor, I highly recommend that you check it out. It's gonna give you a great field of view of the enemy so you can kind of figure out where they're coming from, and especially if the enemy has a glass, it can be a great way of countering him. The next thing is that did you know that you can destroy an enemy's claymore while jumping through a window before it detonates and kills you? I'm sure this has happened to you a lot since the recent update where they introduced this new gadget. You jump through a window expecting to get a nice flank off against an enemy Blackbeard who is camping the objective on the outside of the window, and you immediately get put in the down but not out stage or just flat out die to the claymore. Well, much like the frost trap tactic where you jump through the window and shoot at the ground to take it out, it's the same thing, but a little bit more challenging. If you kind of have a general idea of what side the claymore is positioned on, vault through the window, and much like the frost trap, you get a brief couple of seconds to take out the gadget. Now, it is going to be much more challenging because it's harder to hit and you're not exactly sure which side of the window that it's on, so it is going to require some dexterity on the part of the player to take it out, and it's also probably going to ruin your flank. Normally, when you're jumping out a window, you need to be very hyper-aggressive to get that flank off. You're not probably thinking about a claymore down on the ground, and even if you do, if you're shooting at the claymore, that's going to let the enemy know that you're there, and it may ruin the flank altogether. But it is much better than dying in a situation like that. And while I still don't really recommend that you jump out of a window where a claymore is, or you be very reserved about it, if you are determined to do so and you really want to get that flank off, just know that it is possible to take this out with a little skill and finesse. Another really fun camera spot that I don't see many people taking advantage of is if you're playing on canals, make your way to the 3rd story, break open the barricade, whip around really quickly, and then aim your camera at the radio tower. Aim high because there is going to be some drop to the camera. It's not going to be a straight line, and it's going to give you an amazing field of view of what's going on. especially if you're defending that objective, you're on the 3rd story, the enemy is not only not going to be able to see it, they're going to have a hard time figuring out where the camera is, they're probably not even going to look up there, but it gives you a good idea of not only what's happening on the brown building, but also what's going down below you as well. And so while it's not a game changer, it's not going to completely change the way that you play on this map, I find that as a Valkyrie spot, this is one of the better ones. And the last thing is that I don't know if a lot of people already know about this, but I don't see many people taking advantage of it. But if you make your way on over to the garage and you're on offense, peer through the little drone hole and take anyone out that's in the hallway. It gives you a clear line of sight of the hallway, and especially if someone's in the garage and you get some teammates to kind of flush them out and get them into the hallway, this can be a great way at taking them out. And while of course this can be a double-edged sword if the enemy is using the same tactic on the defensive team, and you gotta watch out for that, more often than not, they're not, and you're gonna be able to get a couple of cheeky kills this way. Honestly, you should be looking out for these sneaky spots on every single map. Drone holes are really good at getting some fun kills off on the enemy, and this is probably just one of the better examples of it. And so once again, I don't know how known this is. I'm sure a lot of people already know about it, but I just don't see a lot of people taking advantage of it, and so I figured I would bring it up in today's video. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Did You Know? I hope you enjoyed. If there is any sneaky tactics or anything that you've learned ever since the impact grenades or the claymores have been added on into the game, let everyone know down below. I am constantly learning new things every single day in Rainbow Six Siege, and so if there is something that you think not a lot of people know about in Rainbow Six Siege, let us all know down below in the comments. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.